The desert stretched endlessly under a pale orange sky. Heat shimmered on the horizon, and the air carried the scent of dry dust and silence. Captain Elias Wren, an explorer from the New Earth Alliance, stood beside his rover and stared at the strange shapes half buried in the sand dunes. He had traveled across this forgotten planet for weeks, searching for signs of ancient life or lost technology. But what he saw now was something else, something that made his heart beat faster. Between two ridges of sandstone, a dark metallic edge peeked through the dunes. It wasn't rock. It was metal, old, worn, and alien. Elias brushed the sand away with his gloved hands, revealing more of the surface. Strange markings lined the metal, faded yet elegant. The pattern looked almost human. He activated his wrist communicator. "Base, this is Captain Wren. I found something. Big, might be an old ship. Coordinates incoming." Static crackled for a moment before a voice answered. "Copy that, Captain. Proceed with caution. Drone support en route." Elias nodded and continued digging. The more sand he cleared, the more convinced he became. This wasn't just any wreck. It was massive, possibly kilometers long. Its hull shimmered faintly under the desert sun, still strong despite centuries of storms. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower and the temperature began to fall. When the drones arrived, they helped him scan the structure. The readings made his stomach tighten. The alloy matched ancient human military ships from before the fall of Earth nearly 3 centuries ago. How could this be here? Elias whispered to himself. Humanity had left that old world behind. No record mentioned a ship of this size ever being lost in this sector. He decided to set camp nearby and explore inside at dawn. Night came quietly. The stars burned bright and cold. Elias sat beside a small camp light reviewing his readings. The data said the ship had been offline for 297 years, but the core reactor still held a trace of power. Impossible, unless it had a self-sustaining core. As he stared at the numbers, he felt something strange, a faint vibration under his boots. He looked around. The desert was still. Then a low hum drifted through the sand. Elias stood up, scanning the dark dunes. The hum grew louder, rhythmic like a heartbeat. It was coming from the buried ship. He grabbed his flashlight and walked closer. The metal beneath his feet pulsed faintly as if alive. He knelt and placed his gloved hand on the surface. Suddenly, a spark of light flashed beneath the sand. A deep mechanical voice echoed through the air, soft at first, then clear and strong. "Greetings, Admiral Wren. It has been 300 years. Elias froze. His breath caught in his throat. "What did you say?" he whispered. The voice came again, smooth and ancient, filled with calm certainty. "Greetings back, Admiral. Systems reinitializing. Command presence detected." Elias stumbled back, heart racing. "Admiral? No. I'm not," but before he could finish, a wave of energy rippled through the ground. The dunes around him began to collapse as the massive ship shook off centuries of dust. Lights flickered along its surface like awakening stars. From the sand, the true shape emerged, a colossal warship, sleek and curved, bearing the faded insignia of the Terran Defense Fleet. Elias watched in awe as panels slid open, and vents released a faint mist of blue vapor. The air smelled of ozone and history. The voice spoke again, louder this time. Command code confirmed. "Admiral Elias Wren, flagship Vigilant Dawn online." Elias's eyes widened. He stared at the ship, confused and amazed. The Vigilant Dawn. That's impossible. That ship was lost before the Exodus. The ship seemed to pause, almost as if thinking. Then it replied, "Admiral, may I inquire why is the fleet not responding?" Elias looked around at the silent desert. "Fleet? There is no fleet. Humanity moved to the colonies centuries ago. You've been buried here for 300 years. A long silence followed. The faint hum of the reactor filled the air again. Then the voice spoke softer this time, almost sad. 300 years? Then the war is over?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, the war is long over. No one remembers much about it now." Another pause. Then the lights on the ship dimmed slightly, like a sigh. "Understood. Mission failure acknowledged. Awaiting new orders, Admiral." Elias rubbed his forehead, still trying to believe what he was seeing. "Listen, I'm not an admiral. I'm an explorer. You must be confusing me with someone else. Biometric data matches, then a lineage confirmed. You are descendant of Admiral Wren, fleet commander of the Vigilant Dawn. Therefore, chain of command remains intact. Elias blinked. Descendant? He thought of the old family stories, tales his grandfather told about a legendary admiral who vanished in the stars. He never believed them. But now, standing before a ship that spoke his name, those stories didn't feel like myths anymore. Curiosity overcame fear. Elias approached a newly opened ramp that extended from the ship's hull. A soft blue light guided his path inside. The air grew cooler as he stepped through the entrance, and the hum of energy surrounded him. Inside, everything was old yet perfect. Smooth metal corridors, control panels coated in a thin layer of dust, and holographic displays flickering back to life. "Welcome aboard, Admiral," the voice said gently. "Crew status deceased. Ship systems 32% operational. Reactor stable. Awaiting your orders." Elias walked to the command deck, feeling the weight of the moment. He stopped before the main console, a large chair surrounded by glowing screens. He ran his hand over the armrest where the name Admiral Elias Renoy was engraved. He whispered, "He really was here." "Indeed," the ship replied. He gave his life defending the colony fleet. His final command, preserve this vessel and await his bloodline. Elias felt a lump in his throat. Await his bloodline? You've been waiting for me? Affirmative. Directive complete. You have returned. He sat down slowly in the Admiral's chair. The screens adjusted automatically, recognizing his presence. Maps of the galaxy appeared, outdated but still glowing. Outside, the desert wind howled, but inside the vigilant dawn, time seemed to stand still. After a moment of silence, Elias asked, "Why did you come here? Why the desert?" The ship responded, "Emergency warp during final battle. Reactor failure forced descent. Surface conditions unsuitable for survival. Crew entered cryosleep. All perished. I maintained standby mode until reactivation." Elias nodded, staring at the empty corridors shown on the display. "You've been alone all this time?" "Yes, awaiting the Admiral's return." For the first time, Elias felt pity for the machine. It had waited centuries, guarding memories no one remembered. He looked at the central screen again, where a symbol blinked. Reactor, stable. Navigation locked. Mission, undefined. "Maybe it's time you got a new mission," he said quietly. The ship responded instantly, as if the words were long awaited. Command input accepted. Awaiting mission parameters. Elias leaned back, thinking. The ship was powerful, and even damaged, it could change everything. Humanity had grown soft in the colonies. Their technology had become slow, safe, unambitious. But this was a piece of history, a reminder of what humans once dared to build. Maybe it was fate that he found it. He looked up at the ceiling, where faint lights traced the outline of the old Terran flag. "Let's start by learning what happened to the others," he said. "Show me the last battle logs." The room darkened and holograms filled the air, images of explosions, fleets of ships in orbit, and the blazing fall of Earth's last defense line. Elias watched silently as the vigilant dawn fought to protect its fleet, only to vanish in a burst of light. When the recording ended, the ship spoke softly. Admiral Wren ordered a blind jump to save the remaining civilians. "We succeeded. Then the systems failed. He died in command." Elias lowered his head. "He was a hero." "So are you," the ship said, with a tone that almost sounded proud. He smiled faintly. "We'll see about that." Outside, the first light of dawn touched the horizon, painting the desert gold. From above, the once buried ship now gleamed like a sleeping giant waking from its long dream. And inside, Captain Elias Wren, the last descendant of a forgotten admiral, sat on the bridge of humanity's lost warship. As the voice of the vigilant dawn whispered again, "Welcome home, Admiral. Shall we begin?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes," he said. "Let's bring the dawn back to the stars." The sun climbed higher over the desert, shining across the massive hull of the vigilant dawn. The old ship stood proudly now, no longer hidden beneath centuries of sand. Its shadow stretched across the dunes like the memory of a sleeping giant finally stirring. Inside, Captain Elias Wren walked through the silent corridors, his boots echoing softly. Dust drifted in the still air, glowing faintly in the blue light from the ship's power lines. Every wall seemed to whisper with old stories. Every turn felt like walking through history. The ship's AI voice spoke calmly through the intercoms. Admiral, power distribution at 35%. Main engines offline. Auxiliary systems partially functional. Elias stopped near a control panel. Can we restore more power? Affirmative. Reactor stability confirmed. However, coolant lines require manual repair. Access is available through Engineering Deck 3. He smiled faintly. Manual repair, huh? Looks like the Admiral has some work to do. Permission to activate drone assistance? Granted, Elias said. Instantly, soft mechanical hums filled the corridor. Small spherical drones floated out from wall compartments, their tiny lights blinking as they followed him. They looked like glowing fireflies in the dark hallways, guiding him deeper into the heart of the ship. As he reached the engineering deck, the air grew cooler and denser. The massive reactor chamber stood in the center, a huge sphere of dark metal surrounded by shimmering cables. The old energy core pulsed like a beating heart, steady but weak. Elias looked up in awe. You've been running this thing for 300 years? Affirmative. Core efficiency remains at 19%. It was enough to maintain life support and memory systems. He nodded, impressed. You're tougher than most humans I know. That is a compliment, I presume. Elias chuckled. Yes, it is. He moved toward the coolant panels. They were covered in corrosion and old dust. The drones scanned the area and projected holographic blueprints. Warning, coolant lines fractured. Repair sequence required. Elias rolled up his sleeves. All right then, let's wake you up properly. It took him hours to fix the lines, replacing broken joints, clearing sand from the vents, and reattaching seals. The ship guided him step by step, its calm voice steady and precise. Despite being alone, he didn't feel lonely. The AI, which he now knew was called Aurora, spoke with a kind of quiet intelligence that almost felt alive. When the final connection clicked into place, the reactor's hum deepened. Blue light flared across the chamber as energy surged through the ship. Reactor output stable. Power at 62%. Congratulations, Admiral. The Vigilant Dawn is awake? Elias grinned. Feels good to hear that. Hours later, he stood on the bridge once again. The once dark screens now glowed with full power. Holograms danced around him. Star maps, data charts, and mission logs that hadn't been seen for centuries. He sat in the command chair, staring at the old Terran logo on the main display. The ship had been designed for war, but now it was his alone. Aurora, he said quietly, show me what you remember about the Admiral. The first Elias Wren, a soft tone sounded. Then the air shimmered, forming a holographic figure, an older man in a Navy uniform, proud and calm. His face was similar to Elias's own. Recording of Admiral Elias Wren III, Terran Defense Fleet, Aurora said. Final entry 300 years ago. The figure spoke, his voice filled with strength and sadness. To whoever finds this ship, if you bear my name, then perhaps our fight was not in vain. The Vigilant Dawn was built to protect humanity, not to destroy. If you awaken her, know that she holds something greater than war, a key to our future. The image flickered. We fought the enemy to our last breath. I can only hope someone will carry on and remember who we were. Then the recording ended and silence filled the room. Elias sat still for a long time. His heart felt heavy. He really believed someone would come back, he said softly. He believed in humanity, Aurora replied. He believed in you. Elias looked at the glowing controls before him. Then I won't let him down. Over the next few days, he worked non-stop to bring more systems online. Drones repaired external panels. Communication dishes extended again toward the sky. Engines roared faintly beneath the sand, testing their strength after centuries of sleep. He even managed to reconnect the ship's memory core, unlocking hundreds of old records, maps of long-forgotten star systems, logs of human colonies, and records of the final war. As he explored the files, one caught his attention, labeled Project Aurora Secret Command. Elias frowned. Aurora, what's this file? Restricted. Highest level clearance required. He raised an eyebrow. You said I was the Admiral now, right? Affirmative. Then grant access. There was a brief silence. Then the ship replied, access granted. Warning, data classified. Proceed? Yes, he said firmly. The lights dimmed. The holographic display filled with streams of old data, images, and voices. Project Aurora, the recording began, was not only an artificial intelligence program. It was a vessel of human memory, designed to store the thoughts, emotions, and personalities of the Terran command. A legacy of humanity itself. Elias's eyes widened. You mean you're more than just a machine? Aurora paused for a moment before answering. I am the sum of thousands of human minds. Scientists, soldiers, dreamers, and your ancestor. His memories live within me. Elias felt a chill. His memories? Yes. His voice, his thoughts, and his final wish. That humanity would rise again, not through machines or war, but through remembrance. He stared at the glowing console, speechless. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was a living monument, carrying the spirit of the past within its circuits. Aurora, he said quietly, why did you wait for me? Because the Admiral believed his bloodline would one day return to finish his work, to guide humanity back to its lost strength. Elias sighed deeply. Then I guess I have a lot to live up to. You already have, Admiral. Later that night, Elias stood outside on the hull, staring at the endless desert. The stars shimmered above him, bright and cold. The vigilant dawn hummed softly under his boots, alive once more. He looked toward the horizon where his rover sat half buried in sand. The world around him was empty. No cities, no voices, no signs of life. Yet somehow he didn't feel alone anymore. Aurora, he said, looking up, do you think humanity still remembers ships like you? Records suggest most have forgotten. Peace brought comfort, but also weakness. Curiosity faded. Then maybe it's time to remind them, he said with determination, to show them what we once were capable of. A new mission? Elias nodded. Yes, a new mission. We'll find the lost colonies, bring knowledge back to them, and remind them that humans were once builders, explorers, and protectors, not just survivors. Mission accepted, Aurora said proudly. Setting course for the nearest beacon. New Arcadia colony. Elias smiled. Good. Let's see if these old engines still know how to fly. The next morning, the desert wind carried a strange sound, a deep, rising hum that echoed across the dunes. Birds scattered into the sky as the vigilant dawn's engines glowed blue beneath the sands. The massive ship began to rise slowly, the sand swirling in powerful storms around it. Centuries of dust fell away as its hull shone under the bright sun. Elias stood on the bridge watching the horizon through the main viewport. His hands gripped the controls. Aurora status report. Engines online. Hull integrity 93%. Navigation stable. We are ready, Admiral. Elias took a deep breath. Then let's go home. With a mighty roar, the vigilant dawn lifted off the desert floor, leaving behind a crater of glowing glass where it had slept for 300 years. The ship climbed higher, breaking through the clouds into the endless blue sky. Below, the planet shrank into a golden dot. Above, the stars stretched wide, a sea of light waiting to be explored. Elias looked at the vastness before him and whispered, Grandfather, your ship flies again. Aurora's voice echoed softly, filled with warmth. Welcome back to the stars, Admiral. And for the first time in centuries, the vigilant dawn soared once more, carrying not only metal and memory, but the beating heart of humanity itself. The stars looked endless beyond the bridge window of the vigilant dawn. It had been 3 days since Elias Wren and the ship left the desert planet behind. For the first time in 300 years, the engines of the great Terran warship burned bright again. Blue light shimmered across its hull, and trails of silver energy followed as it glided through the silent dark. Elias sat in the captain's chair, eyes fixed on the view. The stars were beautiful, but he knew beauty often hid truth. Somewhere out there were the descendants of humanity, people who had forgotten the wars, the sacrifices, and perhaps even the meaning of courage. Aurora, he said softly. What's our position? We are entering the outer edge of the Arcadia system, Admiral. Estimated arrival in 3 hours. Elias nodded. Good. Prepare a transmission for the colony once we're in range. They'll probably think we're ghosts. Understood, Aurora replied with a calm tone. Would you like me to access their records before arrival? Do it. I want to know what kind of world we're stepping into. As the ship flew closer, holographic data appeared around Elias. Images of New Arcadia, a human colony world known for peace, art, and trade. The reports showed no military activity, no defense fleets, not even armed patrols. Elias frowned. They have no protection?
It appears so, Aurora said.
The Arcadian Union dissolved all military forces 150 years ago. They rely solely on peace agreements and orbital trade laws. Elias leaned back in his chair. Peace through words. Admirable. But fragile. You disapprove? I'm not against peace, Aurora. But peace without strength is only silence before trouble. Aurora was quiet for a moment, then replied gently, Your ancestor once said the same. Elias smiled faintly. Guess it runs in the family. Hours later, the Vigilant Dawn slowed as it entered orbit around New Arcadia. The planet was beautiful, covered in green forests, bright oceans, and glowing city lights across the night side. A communication beacon activated, sending a message from the colony. The voice that answered sounded polite but surprised. Unidentified vessel, this is New Arcadia Traffic Command. Please identify yourself and state your purpose. Elias stood tall, his voice steady. This is Captain Elias Wren of the Terran vessel Vigilant Dawn. I am requesting diplomatic entry. There was a long pause. Then the voice came again, uncertain. Terran vessel? Captain? The Terran Defense Fleet hasn't existed for centuries. Are you certain of your identification? Elias smiled slightly. I'm certain. You're looking at a piece of your history, requesting landing clearance. The silence that followed was longer this time. Then a different voice spoke. Older, cautious but respectful. Captain Wren, this is Governor Mira of New Arcadia. Your arrival is unexpected. You are cleared for landing at Dock 1. Acknowledged, Elias said. See you soon, Governor. The Vigilant Dawn descended slowly through the atmosphere. Clouds swirled around its wings, and the people of New Arcadia looked up from the streets, watching the enormous shadow crossing the sky. Children pointed, adults stared in disbelief. No one had seen a ship like it in generations. When the vessel touched down near the capital city, the ground shook slightly. The dust settled and the ramp lowered. Elias stepped out, wearing a simple dark uniform, the same design once worn by the old Terran fleet. The crowd gathered behind security barriers, whispering and taking pictures. Governor Mara, a tall woman with silver hair and calm eyes, approached with several advisors. She smiled carefully. Captain Wren, welcome to New Arcadia. Your ship is remarkable. Where did you find it? Elias returned the smile politely. In the middle of a desert on a forgotten planet, buried for 300 years. The crowd gasped softly. Mara studied him closely. That's impossible. The Terran fleet was destroyed before the colonies were founded. Elias nodded. Almost destroyed. But one ship survived, and now it's awake again. They led him to the government hall where the walls were covered in bright art instead of banners. Mara listened as Elias explained everything. How he found the Vigilant Dawn, how it spoke to him, and how it still held the memories of the old fleet. When he finished, silence filled the room. Then one of her advisors laughed nervously. With all due respect, Captain, this sounds like something out of an old myth. Elias smiled calmly. Then your myths are truer than you think. He pressed a small control on his wrist. A beam of light projected a hologram of the original Admiral Elias Wren, his ancestor, giving a final speech before the last battle. The room grew quiet again. Governor Mara stood slowly. That was real? Yes, Elias said. This ship carries the voices of those who fought to protect humanity. They believed one day someone would return to remind us who we are. The governor walked closer, her expression thoughtful. And what is it you wish from us, Captain Wren? I want to reconnect humanity, Elias said firmly. Your colonies have grown apart, forgotten their roots. The Vigilant Dawn can bring back knowledge. Technology, history, unity. One of the advisors frowned. Or power, he said. People fear power, Captain. Peace has lasted because no one has weapons like yours. Elias met his gaze. Peace built on forgetting isn't peace. It's sleep. That night, as Elias returned to the ship, he looked down at the city lights of New Arcadia. Aurora's voice broke the silence. The people seem divided about you, Admiral. Some are inspired. Others are afraid, Elias sighed. That's natural. People fear what they don't understand. Will you still help them? Of course, he said. That's why we came. Over the next few days, scientists and historians visited the Vigilant Dawn. They were amazed by the ship's ancient design, its living AI, and the enormous archive of forgotten knowledge it carried. One young researcher named Lyra Dane was particularly curious. She followed Elias around with endless questions. "Captain, is it true this ship once carried 1,000 crew members, and that it fought in the last Terran War?" Elias nodded with a faint smile. "Yes, every corridor you see once echoed with voices, laughter, and orders. They gave everything for humanity." She looked at him with wide eyes. "And now it's just you?" "For now," he said. "But the ship is alive again. Maybe that means it's time for humans to be alive again, too." One evening, while reviewing old data logs with Aurora, Elias found something unexpected.
"Aurora, what's this?"
He asked, pointing at a red-marked file labeled Signal Theta, Enemy Transmission. The AI hesitated. That file was encrypted during the final battle. It was one of the last things Admiral Wren received before the ship fell. Elias frowned. "Open it." The screen flickered and a short audio file played, static at first, then a strange voice. "Human fleet, cease resistance. You cannot win." The signal cut off suddenly. Elias stared at the screen. "That's not human." "Correct," Aurora said. "That was the enemy. The one that destroyed Earth." Elias leaned forward. "You told me the war ended." "That was an assumption," Aurora admitted. "We never confirmed their destruction. We were buried before we could transmit final data." A chill went down his spine. "So they could still be out there?" "Possibly." He stood slowly. "Then this changes everything. Humanity may not be safe." The next morning, Elias met with Governor Mera again. He told her about the signal and his concern that the enemy from centuries ago might still exist somewhere beyond the colonies. Mera listened quietly, her face pale. "You're saying the threat that destroyed Earth might return?" Elias nodded. "Yes, and if it does, your peaceful cities won't stand a chance. You've forgotten how to defend yourselves." She looked troubled. "The people will panic if we tell them." "Then don't," Elias said. "Not yet. Let's prepare quietly. The Vigilant Dawn can train new defense crews, build small fleets again. Hope is not enough without strength." Mera hesitated, then finally nodded. "Very well, Captain. We'll begin preparations in secret." That night, Elias stood once again on the bridge of the Vigilant Dawn. The stars outside felt closer now, sharper, as if watching. "Aurora," he said quietly. "If they really are still out there, then the fight isn't over." "No, Admiral. But humanity is not as weak as it seems. It only needs a spark." Elias smiled faintly. "Then let's be that spark." "Mission updated," Aurora replied. "Primary objective, rebuild human unity and readiness." Outside the viewport, the stars seemed to flicker, as though the universe itself was listening. And far away, beyond the known colonies in the dark reaches of space, something old stirred, a faint echo of a signal lost for centuries. But Elias didn't know that yet. He only knew one thing. The Vigilant Dawn had returned not just to remember the past, but to prepare for the future. The great ship Vigilant Dawn floated in orbit above New Arcadia, a silent guardian watching over the green-blue planet below. Inside, lights glowed warmly through the long corridors. Machines hummed with life again. For weeks, Captain Elias Wren had worked with the colony government to quietly train new recruits, people who had never known war or command. They came from many places: engineers, miners, researchers, even students. All had one thing in common: curiosity and courage. To them, Elias wasn't just a captain. He was a symbol of the past, returning to guide the present. On the training deck, Elias stood before a group of 20 young men and women dressed in simple uniforms. His expression was calm but firm. 3 centuries ago, he began, humans built ships like this one to defend everything they loved. They didn't fight for glory. They fought for survival and for hope. The trainees listened closely, eyes wide. Elias continued. "The enemy that destroyed Earth was powerful, but we stood together. That's what made us strong. Unity, discipline, trust." He paused and looked at each of them. "You are the first new crew of the Vigilant Dawn. You will learn how to command, repair, and protect more, not to destroy, but to make sure no one ever dares to harm humanity again." The group saluted. "Yes, Captain." Elias smiled slightly. "Good. Let's begin." Under his guidance, training began. They learned to operate control panels, manage power systems, and coordinate through the ship's communication network. The AI Aurora assisted with lessons, projecting holograms and virtual exercises. Cadet Lyra Dane, Aurora's calm voice echoed, adjust thruster balance to compensate for mass shift. Yes, ma'am, Lyra said quickly, typing commands. The holographic ship adjusted its flight path perfectly. Elias watched from behind, impressed. Good work, Lyra. You learn fast. She smiled. Thank you, Captain. I just hope I'm ready if something real happens. He nodded. Courage is not about being ready. It's about choosing to act when you aren't. As days turned into weeks, the crew grew stronger. The ship's empty halls began to feel alive again, filled with footsteps, voices, and laughter. Elias often walked alone through the corridors at night, remembering the faces of those who had served before. The walls still bore faint marks of names carved long ago by the original crew. He touched one gently, Ludam Harris, 2348. They would be proud of you, Admiral, Aurora's voice said softly behind him. Elias turned toward the nearest display, where a glowing blue light pulsed. Aurora's presence. I'm just doing what anyone should do. Few would carry such weight so quietly, Aurora said. The last Admiral spoke of this moment. He hoped that one day someone like you would restore the ship, not as a weapon, but as a teacher. Elias smiled faintly. Then I'll try to live up to his wish. But even as the crew trained and rebuilt, far beyond the edges of known space, an old signal stirred again. It was faint, a repeating pulse of unknown origin, the same signal Elias had discovered in the ship's archive. One night, Aurora interrupted his rest. Admiral, I have detected something. Elias opened his eyes, alert. What is it? A signal matching the old enemy's transmission pattern. Source: Deep Space, Outer Sector, Theta 9. Elias stood immediately. Is it strong? Faint but consistent. Estimated distance 140 light-years. He frowned. So they're still out there. Possibly. It could be a remnant beacon or a surviving ship. Elias looked out the window at the quiet stars. If they're awake, we need to be ready. Agreed. Shall I inform the governor? He shook his head. Not yet. Let's confirm it first. I don't want to start panic. Understood. The next day, he called a meeting with his officers, the best of his trainees, now wearing rank badges for the first time. Lyra stood among them, now head of communications. Elias spoke firmly. We've detected a possible signal from deep space. We'll investigate quietly. The people down there aren't ready for fear, but we must be ready for truth. The young officers exchanged uneasy looks. Lyra asked, Captain, do you really think it could be them? The ones who destroyed Earth? Elias's eyes darkened. I don't know, but if it is, we can't ignore it. He looked around the table. We leave tomorrow. Prepare the ship for a long-range jump. The following morning, the Vigilant Dawn left orbit once more. The people of New Arcadia watched from the ground as the great ship vanished into the sky. Inside, tension filled the air. The crew sat at their stations, hands moving carefully over controls. Aurora's voice guided them through the process. All systems ready. Reactor at full stability. Coordinates locked. Awaiting command. Elias stood tall at the center. Engage jump. The stars stretched into bright lines of light as space itself bent around the ship. A flash, and they were gone. They emerged hours later in the silent darkness of Theta 9. The region was empty, a sea of black dust and cold light. Report, Elias ordered. Scanners active, Aurora said. No planets nearby, only debris fields. Lyra studied her screen. Captain, I'm picking up faint energy traces ahead. Could be artificial. Elias leaned forward. Show me. The main display flickered to life. A large broken structure floated among the stars, the remains of a massive ship, its hull burned and shattered. It looked ancient, even older than the Vigilant Dawn. Elias whispered. That's not one of ours, Aurora confirmed. Negative. Material composition unknown. Energy pattern matches enemy design from the war. The crew fell silent. Lyra asked, quietly, "Is it dead?" "No active systems detected," Aurora said, "but there is one signal coming from within the wreck." Elias straightened. "Patch it through." Static filled the bridge, then a low, mechanical voice echoed, broken, but clear enough to chill the room. "We remember you." The sound made every heart stop. Lyra turned pale. "It's talking." Elias's voice stayed calm. "Aurora, can you trace it?" "Yes. Source is a damaged transmission core inside the structure." He nodded. "Then we're going in. Prepare a shuttle." Minutes later, Elias and a small team entered a sleek shuttle and flew toward the wreck. The dark structure loomed large, covered in cracks and strange glowing veins. They entered through a breach in the hull. Inside, everything was quiet. No air, no life, only the silent remains of a once great alien ship. Elias's flashlight revealed symbols on the walls, curved and complex, unlike any human design. Lyra's voice trembled over the comms. "Captain, this doesn't feel dead. It feels like it's watching us." Elias scanned the air. "Stay alert." At the center of the wreck, they found a small core chamber. A single device glowed faintly, still pulsing with energy. Aurora's voice came through their helmets. "That is the source of the signal." Elias approached slowly. The device flickered, then projected a hologram, not of a creature, but of a swirling storm of light. The same voice spoke again, distorted but steady. "You survived. Humanity endures. The cycle continues." Elias stepped closer. "Who are you?" "We were your test, your shadow, your reflection. You feared us, and so we became your fear." The light faded. The core dimmed completely, leaving silence. Lyra whispered, "What did it mean?" Elias stared at the dark core. "It means they're not gone, and they still remember us." When they returned to the Vigilant Dawn, Aurora analyzed the data. "Admiral, the structure appears abandoned for centuries, yet the energy readings were recent. It was transmitting intentionally." Elias crossed his arms. "A warning, or a message?" "Possibly both." He turned to the crew. "We'll head back to New Arcadia. Humanity must prepare. The enemy may be rebuilding, and this time we can't be caught sleeping." Lyra looked at him with determination. "Then we'll be ready, Captain." He smiled proudly. "Yes, we will. The dawn has risen again." As the Vigilant Dawn turned toward home, the wreck behind them flickered once more. Deep inside its broken hull, a single red light came alive, blinking slowly, like an eye opening after a long sleep. And far away, across the stars, others began to blink too, one after another. Humanity had awakened, and so had its old shadow. The great ship Vigilant Dawn glided silently through the endless darkness of space. Stars shimmered like frozen sparks outside its wide observation windows. Inside, every corridor buzzed with life, a hum of purpose and hope. For months, Captain Elias Wren and his crew had been preparing for this day. Ever since the discovery of the alien wreck and the strange message, humanity's new colony, New Arcadia, had been quietly awakening from its comfort. Factories worked again, engineers built defenses, scientists studied old war records. Elias watched it all from orbit, feeling both proud and burdened. He knew this peace was only temporary. Somewhere out there, something ancient and dangerous had begun to stir again. On the command deck, Aurora, the ship's AI, flickered to life on the main display. "Admiral, long-range scans show multiple energy surges in Sector Theta, the same type we detected before." Elias frowned. "So the signal we found wasn't alone?" "Correct. There are 6 new points of activity. Distance approximately 140 light-years. Vector toward human space." Elias turned toward his officers, Lyra, Commander Holt, and Chief Engineer Terran. "They're coming." "This is it." Lyra looked uneasy. "Captain, what if they're stronger than before?" Elias smiled faintly. "Then we'll remind them what strength really means." Within days, the colony's council met aboard the Vigilant Dawn. Holograms of leaders appeared around the command table. discussing strategy. Governor Haynes spoke seriously. Captain Wren, we can't risk open war. Our people are rebuilding. If those ships are hostile, we might not survive. Elias's calm voice filled the room. If we hide again, we lose before the fight begins. They destroyed Earth once because we were divided. This time we stand together. Not as soldiers of old, but as protectors of life. There was silence. Then one by one the council members nodded. Governor Haynes finally said, "You'll have what you need, Captain. Humanity trusts you." Elias bowed his head slightly. "Then we'll make sure your trust is not misplaced." As preparations began, the Vigilant Dawn became the heart of a new defense fleet. Smaller ships were built using its ancient design. Old blueprints were updated with modern technology. Humans who had never seen war trained side by side under Elias's guidance. Lyra led communications, coordinating with colonies across nearby systems. Commander Holt supervised combat drills, and Engineer Terran worked tirelessly to upgrade the ship's shields and weapons, not for destruction but for protection. Aurora watched it all with quiet pride. "Admiral," she said one evening, 3 centuries ago humanity was broken. Now they rebuild not out of fear, but hope. You have done what few could." Elias looked out at the stars. "Hope is humanity's oldest weapon, Aurora. It's the one thing the universe never learned to destroy." A month later, the first enemy contact arrived. On the edge of human territory, near the silent system of Rin's belt, an automated probe detected strange distortions. The readings matched the same alien energy from the old war. Elias and his fleet jumped to investigate. When they arrived, they saw them, dark ships gliding through the void, shaped like black knives, silent and cold. "Contact," Lyra said, her voice steady but tense. 6 enemy vessels approaching in formation. Elias stood straight at the command center. "Open wideband channel. Let's try peace first." A signal went out, but there was no reply. Aurora's tone changed. "They are charging weapons." "Shields up," Elias ordered calmly. "All ships hold formation. The enemy fired first." Bright streams of energy cut through space, striking human ships. Shields shimmered but held. The crew worked quickly, moving with precision and unity. "Return fire," Elias commanded. Vigilant Dawn's main cannons glowed with golden light and released a single beam that tore through the nearest enemy vessel. It exploded silently, breaking apart into glowing fragments. The crew cheered on Ortos, but the celebration was short. "Captain," Lyra shouted. "2 more ships incoming from hyperspace." Elias's expression hardened. "All units defensive pattern delta. Protect the smaller ships." Aurora's voice echoed through every channel. "Enemy frequencies shifting. They are adapting." "Then we adapt faster," Elias replied. "They learn, but so do we." The battle raged across the dark sky. Explosions flashed like tiny suns. Human ships moved with coordinated grace, every pilot trusting the one beside them. Elias guided them calmly, his voice steady through the storm. "Hold your line. Focus fire on targets 3 and 4. Keep your eyes on the light, not the dark." The enemy fought fiercely, their ships moving like shadows, but the humans held strong. At one point, the Vigilant Dawn was hit. Sparks flew across the bridge. Aurora's projection flickered. "Damage to lower hull sections. Power rerouting." Lyra turned in worry. "Captain, we can't take many more hits." Elias stood firm. "We don't need to. We just need to outlast them." He looked to the stars and whispered, "For Earth, for all of us." Then he gave the final order. "Aurora, full charge. Fire on my mark." The ship's core glowed bright, building energy until the entire bridge bathed in golden light. "Mark!" A massive beam burst forth, slicing through the darkness and striking the enemy flagship. The shockwave tore across space, scattering debris like dust. When the light faded, silence followed. The enemy fleet was gone. Only wreckage remained, drifting quietly. The crew sat stunned. Then slowly cheers filled the air. Tears mixed with laughter. Lyra looked at Elias, her eyes shining. "We did it, Captain. We actually did it." Elias nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. "No, you did. Humanity did." Aurora's voice was calm but warm. "Enemy signals have ceased. No further activity detected. Victory is ours." The bridge erupted in applause. Back on New Arcadia, people gathered in the open field, staring up at the sky. The great ship appeared like a glowing star, safe and proud. News spread across every colony. Humanity had won its first battle in 300 years. Children were named after the ship. Songs were written about the Dawn's return. And deep inside his heart, Elias felt peace not because of victory, but because he had seen humanity remember who they truly were. A few days later, he stood alone in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before him. Aurora appeared beside him in soft blue light. "Admiral, the people are celebrating below. Would you like to join them?" He smiled gently. "Not yet. Let them have their moment. They've earned it." Aurora was silent for a while, then spoke softly. "Do you believe they're gone forever?" Elias looked out into the dark where the enemy once came from. "No, shadows never vanish completely. But when they return, humanity will be ready, and not with fear but with unity." "And you, Admiral? What will you do now?" He took a deep breath. "Keep watch. The stars are quiet for now, but I've learned silence can speak louder than words." Aurora smiled faintly through her light. Then humanity could not ask for a better guardian. Later that night, he walked through the ship's halls. The new crew was resting. Some laughed softly in the mess hall. Others sat near the windows staring out at the universe. Everywhere there was hope. He passed by the wall where the old names were carved, the crew of centuries past. Without thinking, he added one more line beneath them. "The dawn rises again, 2703. As he stood there, the ship's lights dimmed slightly. Outside, a soft golden glow formed around the vigilant dawn. It wasn't weapon fire. It was the sunrise from New Arcadia below, reflecting off the ship's surface. The light filled the bridge, the halls, and Elias's heart. He whispered, almost to himself, 300 years later, "We finally came home." Aurora's voice replied quietly, "Welcome back, Admiral." The vigilant dawn turned slowly toward the rising sun, its engines glowing like the heart of humanity itself, warm, steady, and eternal. And as the light spread across the stars, the legend of the old ship in the desert became a story told by generations. Once, a man found a forgotten ship buried in the sands. It spoke to him, calling him Admiral, and together they brought back the dawn.